"Can I eat the crumbs from the ground?" the homeless boy asked the street vendor. David Miller felt his hands tremble as he heard those words. It wasn't the first time a child had approached his popcorn cart asking for food, but something in those brown eyes hit him like a punch to the gut. The boy, who couldn't have been more than 10, was crouched picking up the corn kernels that had fallen on the cobblestone street. "Wait a minute, kid," David said, his voice rougher than he intended. "You don't have to eat off the ground." The boy lifted his head quickly, like a frightened animal ready to run. David noticed a small scar on the child's forehead, just above his left eyebrow. Something about that mark unsettled him in a way he couldn't explain. "I can pay," the boy lied, showing a few dirty coins in his palm. "It's just, I don't have enough." David filled a bag with sweet popcorn and handed it to the boy, refusing the money with a wave. "What's your name?" "Tyler," the boy replied, still wary but grabbing the bag eagerly. "Tyler what?" The boy hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether to answer. "Just Tyler." David watched as the boy ate the popcorn with a hunger that went beyond physical need. It was a hunger he knew well, one that brought back painful memories of his own childhood. "Where do you live, Tyler?" "Around," he answered evasively, already stepping back. "Thanks for the food." That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay in his simple bed in the small apartment he shared with 2 other tenants, thinking about those eyes and that scar. A strange feeling settled in his chest, as if something important was slipping from his memory. The next day, Tyler showed up again, and the day after that, always at the same time, always with the same hunger in his eyes, always picking up the kernels that fell to the ground before David noticed. "I don't have to do that," David said on the 3rd day, watching the boy crouch once more. "My grandma always said you shouldn't waste food," Tyler replied, tucking the kernels into the pocket of his torn pants. "Your grandma?" "Yeah, she's sick. Can't leave the house." David's heart raced. There was something familiar about that story, like echoes of old conversations pushing their way back into his mind. "What's her name?" Tyler stared at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether to trust this man. "Grandma Ruth." The name struck David like lightning. Ruth. His mother's name was Ruth, but it couldn't be. He'd lost his mother over 15 years ago after a terrible fight that tore the family apart. He and his sister Jessica had gone their separate ways, and they'd never heard from their mother again. "How old is she?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "I don't know. She's really old. White hair, you know, and she's got a mole here." Tyler pointed to his own chin. David's legs nearly gave out. His mother had a mole in exactly that spot. "Tyler, where do you live?" The boy took a step back, instinctively wary. "Why do you want to know?" David hesitated. How could he explain this strange feeling, this growing intuition? "I worry about you." "Nobody worries about us," Tyler said, with a bitterness no child his age should have. "We manage on our own." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, David began paying closer attention to Tyler. He noticed the boy wore a faded hospital bracelet, the name partially worn away. He also noticed that his clothes, though clean, were carefully patched, as if someone took care to keep them in good condition. "Tyler," he said one particularly hot afternoon when the street was less busy, "do you want to tell me about your family?" The boy stopped eating and stared at him with those big, expressive eyes. "Not much to tell. It's just me and Grandma Ruth." "And your parents?" Tyler's face closed off immediately. "I don't have parents." "Everyone has parents, Tyler." "Mine disappeared," the boy said with a simplicity that broke David's heart. "Disappeared how?" Tyler shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "My dad left before I was born. My mom, she had to leave too." "Had to leave?" "Grandma Ruth said she was too young, didn't know how to take care of a child. So she left me with Grandma." David felt a tightness in his chest. That story sounded terribly familiar. He remembered the fights at home, the shouting, his sister Jessica crying in her room. How old were you when she left? Little. I don't even remember her well. And where exactly do you live? Tyler hesitated again, but this time he seemed to conclude that David wasn't a threat. In the shelter community, on the other side of town, we have a little room there. David knew the shelter community. It was a cluster of makeshift shacks and houses where families with nowhere else to go lived. A tough place, but where people helped each other however they could. It's far from here. How do you come every day? On foot, Tyler replied matter-of-factly. Takes almost an hour, but it's worth it. You make the best popcorn in town. David's heart tightened even more. That boy walked nearly 2 hours every day just to get a little food, and yet, when he got the popcorn, he shared it with the pigeons around them. That night, David made a decision that would change everything. The next day, when Tyler showed up, he was ready. Tyler, today I'm going to walk you home. The boy's eyes widened, clearly startled. Why? Because I want to meet your grandma. She doesn't like visitors. Maybe she'll like me. Tyler shook his head vigorously. No, you can't. She gets mad when strangers show up. I'm not a stranger, David said, surprising himself with his own words. I mean, I don't feel like one. The boy stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to solve a puzzle. You're weird, he finally said. Everyone's weird, Tyler. What matters is if we're weird in a good way or a bad way. Tyler thought about that as he finished his popcorn. Okay, he said reluctantly. But if she yells, you leave, right? Right. The walk to the shelter community was eye-opening. Tyler knew every street, every shortcut, every person they passed along the way. He greeted the street vendors, waved to the kids playing on the sidewalk, stopped to pet the stray dogs. You're popular around here, David observed. Everyone knows me, Tyler said proudly. I help when I can. How so? I run errands, carry groceries for the ladies, play with the little kids when their mums need to work. David was struck by the maturity of that boy. At just 10 years old, Tyler already had a sense of community and responsibility many adults lacked. The shelter community was exactly as David imagined. A maze of small houses, some made of brick, others of wood and tarp. There was a vibrant life there. Kids playing in the dirt streets, women washing clothes in makeshift tubs, men chatting in small groups. That's it, Tyler said, pointing to a small house at the end of a narrow alley. The house was simple but well kept. There was a small garden in front, with some vegetables growing in old cans. The windows had clean curtains, and the door was painted light blue. Grandma Ruth, Tyler called out, pushing the door open. I brought a visitor. A weak voice answered from inside the house. Tyler, what visitor? You know I can't have anyone over like this. David stepped in behind Tyler and found himself in a small but tidy room. A single bed was pushed against the wall where an elderly woman lay. She wore a clean nightgown, her white hair tied in a messy bun. When the woman lifted her eyes and saw David, her face went pale. She blinked several times, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. My God, she whispered. David. The world stopped. David felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. That was his mother. Older, frailer, but still his mother. Mom, he said, his voice barely audible. Tyler looked back and forth between them, completely confused. You know each other? Ruth began to cry, stretching her trembling arms toward David. My son has come back to me. David moved toward the bed as if walking in a dream. He knelt beside his mother and hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of cologne and coconut soap that always lingered around her. I looked for you, she sobbed. I looked so hard. Me too, David said, tears streaming freely down his face. I looked too. Tyler watched the scene, not understanding any of it. Grandma, who is this man? Ruth looked at her grandson and then at David, a sad smile on her face. Tyler, this is your Uncle David. My son. My uncle. Tyler's eyes widened. But how? It's a long story, sweetheart, Ruth said, stroking the boy's hair. A very sad one. David sat in the room's only chair, still trying to process everything. "Mom, Tyler, is he Jessica's son?" Ruth confirmed, fresh tears welling in her eyes. "Your nephew. Jessica, my sister. She had Tyler very young. The boy's father disappeared when he found out she was pregnant. Jessica tried to take care of him, but she was going through a very rough time. Drinking, leaving the house, leaving Tyler alone." Tyler shrank back as he heard the story of his past. "I took Tyler in to live with me," Ruth continued. "Jessica was furious, said I was interfering in her life. There were terrible fights. One day she just disappeared." "When was that?" David asked. 3 years ago. Tyler was 7. David looked at his nephew, who stood frozen in the middle of the room, clearly shaken by the revelations. "Tyler," he said gently, "are you okay?" The boy shook his head. "I don't understand anything," he said, his voice thick. "Grandma, why didn't you ever tell me I had an uncle?" Ruth sighed deeply. "Because I didn't know where David was. After the fight we had, he left home and never came back. That was 15 years ago." "What fight?" Tyler asked. David and Ruth exchanged glances. It was a hard question to answer. "Family arguments," David finally said. "Sometimes people who love each other fight over silly things and then drift apart. It shouldn't happen, but it does." "And now?" Tyler asked. "Are you going to leave again?" The question hit David like a punch. He looked at this brave boy who walked 2 hours a day searching for food, who took care of a sick grandmother all alone, who still found the energy to help the neighbors. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving this time." Ruth smiled, more tears spilling down her face. "You'll stay with us?" "I'll stay with you," David promised. "We're family." Tyler stepped forward hesitantly. "Really? Really?" The boy hesitated for a moment before throwing himself into David's arms, hugging him tightly. "I always wanted to have an uncle," he whispered. David felt his heart burst with emotion. He hugged his nephew with all his strength, silently promising that he would never let that child go without again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the days that followed, David organized his life to care for the family he had reunited with. He kept working with his popcorn cart, but now spent his nights and weekends in the small house in the shelter community. He discovered that Grandma Ruth had diabetes and needed expensive medication that Tyler couldn't afford. The boy did small jobs around the community, sweeping yards, carrying groceries, watching younger kids, to earn a little money, but it was never enough. "Mom, why didn't you look for me?" David asked one night while Tyler slept. "I tried," she answered, her voice weary. "When you left home, I searched, but you had moved and no one knew where you were. I checked hospitals, the health clinic, asked everyone we knew. Nothing. I looked for you too. I know. Several people told me you'd come asking about me, but the news always reached me too late, after you'd already gone." David felt guilty for all those lost years. "If I hadn't been so proud." "Pride cost us too much time," Grandma Ruth agreed, "but we're together now. That's what matters." "And Jessica, have you heard from her?" Grandma Ruth's face darkened. "Nothing. After she left, we never heard from her again. Tyler asks about her sometimes, but I don't know what to say." David watched his nephew sleeping on the makeshift mattress on the floor. Even in sleep, the boy's face carried a sadness no child should know. Does he miss her? Terribly. Even with all her problems, Jessica was his mother. Tyler keeps a few photos of her hidden under the mattress. He thinks I don't know, but I see when he takes them out to look. David decided he had to do something. The next day, he went to the local records office to try and find information about Jessica. He learned she had filed a change of address 3 years earlier, but the new address was in another town, over 200 kilometers away. "You want to go after her?" Grandma Ruth asked when he told her what he'd found. "I think Tyler has a right to know his mother is okay. And maybe Jessica would want to know how her son is doing. What if she doesn't want to come back? Then at least Tyler will know we tried. Grandma Ruth agreed, but asked David to wait a little. First, they needed to sort out the medication and stabilize the family's finances. Then the first big problem arose. Mr. Thompson, the owner of the spot where David set up his popcorn cart, came demanding a rent increase. "David, you're a good man," said Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged local businessman who owned several commercial spots in the area. "But business is business. Foot traffic here has grown, so the rent has to go up too." "Mr. Thompson, you know I always pay on time." "Yes, and that's why I'm giving you a grace period. You have 2 weeks to adjust to the new rate or find another spot." The new rate was 3 times higher than before. David knew it would be impossible to pay and still support his family. "What if I can't pay?" Mr. Thompson shrugged. "Then you'll have to leave. I already have others interested in the spot." That night, David returned home worried. Tyler noticed his distress immediately. "Uncle, is something wrong?" David didn't want to worry the boy, but he also didn't want to lie to him. "It's just work stuff, Tyler. Nothing we can't handle." "If you need help, I can work more," Tyler offered. "Mrs. Wilson from the bakery said she'd pay me a little to sweep her sidewalk every morning." "No, Tyler. Kids should study, not work." "But I want to help the family. And you already do. Taking care of Grandma, being a good boy, studying for a better future." Tyler wasn't convinced, but he didn't push the matter. 2 days later, while David was working, Tyler showed up at the cart. Only this time, he wasn't alone. He was with Mrs. Jenkins, a woman in her 60s whom David knew by sight. "David," Mrs. Jenkins said without preamble, "Tyler told me about your situation. I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal? Can you make anything besides popcorn?" "I can. I've sold all kinds of things on the street. Churros, pastries, hot dogs." "What about homemade sweets?" David hesitated. "My mom makes some really good treats." "Why?" Mrs. Jenkins smiled. "Because I know plenty of people who'd pay well for quality homemade food. If you're willing to work, I can help you find customers." "How so?" "Grandma Ruth makes the sweets. You sell them with the popcorn. Tyler helps with deliveries. A family partnership." Tyler was thrilled with the idea. "Uncle, Grandma knows how to make chocolate fudge balls, coconut kisses, custard cake. All of it's delicious." David considered the offer. It was risky, but it could also be the solution to their problems. "And what's your part in this, Mrs. Jenkins?" 10% of sales. I bring the customers, you provide the goods. Give me a day to talk it over with my family." That night, David presented the idea to Ruth. "I don't know if I have the strength to cook so much," she said, worried. "I'll help you, Grandma," Tyler said. "I can mix batter, wash dishes, whatever you need." "And I'll help too," David added. "On weekends when I'm not working, I can cook with you." Ruth thought for a moment. "It's been a long time since I put my kitchen skills to use. When you were little, I used to make sweets to sell. I stopped after the family fell apart." "So you'll do it?" Tyler asked hopefully. "I'll do it," Ruth said, smiling for the first time in days. "Let's try." The first week was challenging. Ruth tired easily, and David had to adjust his routine to help with the cooking. Tyler proved to be a dedicated assistant, quickly learning his grandmother's recipes. Their first customers were their own neighbors from the shelter community. Mrs. Wilson from the bakery bought 2 jars of chocolate fudge balls to resell in her shop. Mr. Peterson, the mechanic on the corner, ordered a tray of custard cake for his wife's birthday. "It's working," David said at the end of the first week, counting the money they'd made. "It's still not enough for the cart's rent," Ruth noted, "but it's a start. We'll get there." Then something happened that would completely change the course of their lives. Tyler was making a delivery for Mrs. Jenkins when he saw a woman crying at the bus stop. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked with his usual kindness. The woman looked up, and Tyler felt like he'd been struck by lightning. She had his eyes, his mouth. She was older than he remembered, thinner with worry lines around her eyes, but he recognized her instantly. "Mom," he whispered. Jessica Miller looked at the son she hadn't seen in 3 years and broke into tears. Tyler. "Oh my God." Tyler. Mother and son embraced in the middle of the street, both crying as people passed by without understanding the emotion of that reunion. "You've grown so much," said Jessica, pulling back to get a better look at her son. "You're so handsome, so tall." "Where were you?" asked Tyler through tears. "Why did you leave?" It's complicated, son. Very complicated. Did you come to take me back?" Jessica hesitated. The truth was, she didn't quite know why she was there. She had returned to town in a desperate attempt to find work, with no money to go back to where she'd been living. She hadn't planned to look for her son, thinking it would be better to leave him in peace. "I don't know if Grandma Ruth will want to see me." "Of course she will," said Tyler, taking his mother's hand. "Come with me. There's someone I want you to meet too." On the way to the shelter community, Tyler told her about David, about the Sweets, about how their lives had changed. "And Uncle?" Jessica asked, surprised. "David is here? You know my uncle?" "David is my brother, Tyler. We grew up together." Tyler stopped walking, processing the information. "So you knew he existed and never told me?" Jessica felt guilty at the accusation hidden in the question. "Tyler, when I left, I was going through a really hard time. I couldn't think straight, couldn't make the right decisions. I messed up a lot. And now? Are you better now?" "I'm trying to be." When they arrived at the house, David was helping Grandma Ruth pack the day's sweets. Seeing Jessica at the door, he dropped the spoon he was holding. "Jessica." "Hi, David." The siblings stared at each other for a long moment, 15 years of separation heavy between them. "My goodness," Grandma Ruth said from the bed, stretching out her arms. "My daughter's come back." Jessica rushed to hug her mother, and David watched their tears mingle. Tyler stood frozen in the doorway, watching his family reunite. "Are we all a family again now?" he asked. David walked over and placed a hand on his nephew's shoulder. "We're all a family again now." But the joy of reunion soon gave way to difficult conversations. Jessica admitted she was unemployed, with no place to live, surviving on odd jobs in nearby towns. "Why did you leave without saying anything?" Grandma Ruth asked that night. "Because I was ashamed," Jessica admitted. "Tyler was growing up, and I couldn't be the mother he deserved. I drank too much, left the house, left him alone. You were right when you said I didn't know how to take care of a child." "We never said that," David protested. "Not in those words, but I felt it. Everyone judged me. Everyone knew better than I did how to raise my own son." "It wasn't judgment, sweetheart," Grandma Ruth said gently. "It was worry. You were hurting, and Tyler was hurting too. I know that now. I've spent these 3 years thinking about all the things I did wrong." Tyler, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. "Are you here to stay, or are you leaving again?" The question hit Jessica hard. She looked at her son, her mother, her brother. "I don't know, Tyler. I don't have a job. I don't have a home." "You can stay here," David offered. "We'll figure it out. I don't want to be a burden." "Family isn't a burden," Grandma Ruth said. "Family is responsibility. It's love. It's sticking together when things get hard." Jessica agreed to stay, but living together wasn't easy. Tyler resented his mother. David still held old grudges, and Grandma Ruth felt guilty for not keeping the family together. To make matters worse, the sweets weren't selling as well as they'd hoped. Mrs. Jenkins had brought in a few customers, but not enough to solve the family's money troubles. That's when Mr. Thompson showed up again, this time with an unexpected offer. "David, I've been thinking about our conversation," he said, sitting on the only chair in the house. "I have a different proposal for you all." "What kind of proposal?" "I heard you've been selling homemade sweets. How about turning that into something bigger?" David, Jessica, and Ruth exchanged glances, curious. "What do you mean, bigger?" "I have an empty commercial space a few blocks from here. It's small, but it has a kitchen, a counter, everything you'd need to set up a real bakery." "Mr. Thompson, we don't have money to rent a commercial space." "Who said anything about rent? I'm talking about a partnership. You bring the know-how and the work. I'll provide the space and the initial investment. We split the profits." It was a tempting offer, but David was skeptical. "And what would your share of the profits be?" 50%. You keep the other 50, divided among yourselves however you like." Jessica was the first to speak. This sounds too good to be true. There must be a catch. The only catch is hard work, a lot of it. You'll have to dedicate yourselves fully to the business if you want it to succeed. Ruth looked at her children and grandson. Can we talk it over and give you an answer tomorrow? Of course, but don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't come every day. After Mr. Thompson left, the family gathered to discuss the proposal. I think it's risky, David said. We don't really know this man. But it could be our chance to turn things around, Jessica argued. What if it fails? We'll end up owing him. What if it works? Said Tyler, who had stayed quiet until then. You always talk about how family should stick together. Maybe this is our chance to build something together. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The boy was right. After hours of discussion, they decided to accept the offer. The commercial space Mr. Thompson offered was indeed small, but had potential. It was on a busy street, near a school and some offices. The kitchen was equipped with an industrial stove and all the counter space needed for making sweets. You can start whenever you're ready, Mr. Thompson said, handing over the keys. I've left some basics, sugar, flour, eggs, so you can test your recipes. In the first few days, the family worked hard to get everything in order. Jessica turned out to be a natural salesperson. David handled the administrative side, Ruth took charge of the kitchen, and Tyler helped wherever he could. You know what? Jessica said one afternoon as they arranged the sweets in the display case. It's been a long time since I've felt this useful. You've always been useful, David said. You were just lost. It's different. All these years, I felt like dead weight. Now I feel like I have a purpose. Tyler, who was wiping the counter, stopped to look at his mother. Do you like being here with us? Very much, Jessica replied, hugging him. More than you know. Then why do you sometimes seem sad? The question caught Jessica off guard. It was true. Even though she was happy to be with her family again, she still carried a deep sadness. Because I lost so much time away from you all. Time I'll never get back. But now we have new time, Tyler said with the simple wisdom of children. You can't make up for time that's passed, but you can make the most of the time you still have. David and Ruth listened to the conversation, moved. That boy, who had been through so much, still managed to see the bright side of things. The business started slow but gradually gained customers. Ruth's recipes were truly special, and the fame of the small bakery began to spread through the neighborhood. That's when they faced their second big challenge. One day, Tyler didn't show up at the bakery at the usual time. David and Jessica went out to look for him and found him on a nearby street, surrounded by 3 older boys. Let me pass, Tyler said, trying to stay calm. You're not going anywhere, replied one of the boys. We're in charge here. If you want to sell anything in our area, you have to pay up. I'm not selling anything, I'm just going home. Liar. Everyone knows you work at that bakery. You gotta pay the fee. David stepped forward, feeling his blood boil. What's the problem here? The boys turned, clearly intimidated by the presence of an adult. No problem, said the tallest one. We were just talking. Well, the conversation's over. Tyler, let's go. As they walked back to the bakery, David asked, Has this happened before? A few times, Tyler admitted, but I always managed to get away. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to worry you. You already have enough problems. David stopped walking and knelt in front of his nephew. Tyler, you're never a problem for us. You're our family and family protects family. If someone's bothering you, you tell us, understand? I understand. And one more thing. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're a kid. Let the adults worry about adult problems. Tyler nodded. But David could tell it would be hard to convince that boy to stop feeling responsible for everything and everyone. At the bakery, they told Jessica and Grandma Ruth what had happened. Maybe Tyler shouldn't walk alone for a few days, Jessica suggested. No, Tyler said firmly. I won't hide. If I hide, they'll think they have power over me. Tyler, it's not about hiding, it's about safety. Uncle David, would you hide? The question left David speechless. The boy had inherited the family's stubbornness. "All right," he finally said. "But let's make a deal. You can keep walking alone, but you have to tell us when you leave and when you get back. And if those boys bother you again, you tell us immediately." Deal. The days passed without incident, and the business kept growing. Grandma Ruth was feeling better with the medicine they could now afford. Jessica had regained her confidence, and David was happier than he'd been in years. Tyler, meanwhile, was thriving. He'd gone back to school regularly and even made some friends there. But David noticed the boy still carried sadness in his eyes. "What's worrying you?" he asked one night as Tyler helped close the bakery. "I keep wondering if all this will last." "Why wouldn't it?" "I don't know. I'm scared you'll get tired of me, or that you'll fight again and the family will fall apart once more." David's heart ached. That boy had lost so much he was now afraid to believe in happiness. "Tyler, look at me," he said, placing his hands on his nephew's shoulders. "Real family doesn't get tired of each other. They might fight sometimes, they might have problems, but they don't abandon each other. We're never abandoning you again. Promise?" "I promise." Tyler smiled, but David could still see doubt in his eyes. It would take time for that boy to learn to trust completely again. 2 weeks later, news arrived that would change everything once more. Mr. Thompson showed up at the bakery with a strange look on his face. "Folks, we need to talk," he said, sitting at one of the tables. The family gathered around him, worried by the seriousness in his voice. "Did something happen?" asked David. "Yes and no. I got an offer to sell this location." "Sell?" Jessica widened her eyes. "But what about our partnership?" "The partnership stands, but with other partners now." David felt a chill down his spine. "What kind of other partners?" "A bakery chain. They want to expand into this area and made a very good offer for the location." "And what does that mean for us?" asked Ruth. "It means you'll work for them now, same role, same work, but as employees, not partners." Jessica stood up, clearly upset. "Mr. Thompson, this isn't what we agreed on. You formed a partnership with us. And the partnership still exists. It just has new partners now, too." "That doesn't make sense," David protested. "A partnership can't be sold without all partners' consent." Mr. Thompson sighed and pulled some papers from his bag. "Actually, it can. It's all here in the contract you signed." David took the papers and started reading. His heart sank when he saw the clause that allowed Mr. Thompson to sell his share without consulting the other partners. "We didn't understand this part when we signed," he said. "I explained everything at the time." "No, you didn't," Jessica insisted. "You said we were equal partners." "And you are. You just have new partners now too." Tyler, who had stayed quiet during the whole discussion, finally spoke. "What if we don't want to work for these people? Then you'll have to leave. The location will go to the bakery chain either way." The family exchanged glances, feeling betrayed and deceived. "How long do we have to decide?" asked David. "1 week. The company wants a quick answer." After Mr. Thompson left, the family sat in silence for a long time. "We were tricked," Jessica finally said. "We were," David agreed. "But now we have to decide what to do." "What can we do?" asked Ruth. "We don't have money to start another business, no other place to go." "We could go back to the popcorn cart," David suggested. "It's not ideal, but at least it's ours." "What about the sweets?" asked Tyler. "Grandma was so happy cooking again." "I can keep making them at home," said Ruth, "like before." But they all knew it wouldn't be the same. The bakery had become a symbol of their family's unity, a shared project that gave them purpose. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about everything they'd built together, how Tyler had flourished these past months, how Jessica had regained her confidence, how Ruth had started smiling again. By morning, he had an idea. "Mrs. Jenkins," he said, finding the woman at the bakery where she always had coffee. "I need to talk to you." "Of course, David. What is it?" David explained the whole bakery situation. "I see," Mrs. Jenkins said when he finished. "And what do you want me to do?" "You know a lot of people around here. Do you know anyone who'd be interested in helping us start our own business? Mrs. Jenkins thought for a moment. I do know some people, yes, but you'd have to prove the business is viable. How? By testing it, selling your sweets at different spots around town, showing there's real demand. And how would we do that? With the community's help. I can talk to some shop owners I know, see if they'll sell your sweets on consignment. David felt a spark of hope. You'd do that? Of course. You're a hard-working, honest family. You deserve a chance. David returned home excited and told the family about the conversation. Are you all willing to try? He asked. Yes, Jessica said immediately. Of course, Ruth agreed. What about you, Tyler? The boy smiled for the first time in days. I'm in. But this time, I want to understand all the roles before signing anything. The family laughed, proud of the boy's maturity. The following week was intense. While still working at the bakery, they organized themselves to make extra sweets. Mrs. Jenkins managed to convince 5 merchants to accept the products on consignment. The test is simple, she explained. If the sweets sell well, you prove you have a viable business. If they don't, at least you'll know it might be better to accept the chain bakery's offer. The first test day was nerve-wracking. David, Jessica, and Tyler went out to distribute the sweets at the locations Mrs. Jenkins had suggested. Grandma Ruth stayed home preparing a fresh batch. At the end of the day, they gathered to share the results. Mr. Peterson's bakery sold everything, Tyler reported excitedly. Mrs. Davis's diner, too, said Jessica. And at the accounting office, the secretary said the employees are already asking if there'll be more tomorrow, David added. Grandma Ruth smiled, tears running down her face. Seems like the family recipes are still a hit. By the end of the test week, the results were impressive. Every location had sold out their stock and was asking for more. Mrs. Jenkins brought good news. I spoke with Mr. Wilson, who owns a hardware store. He's interested in investing in your business. Investing how? He'd lend you the startup money to open your own bakery. You'd pay him back from the profits, no interest. Why would he do that? David asked skeptically. Because his wife tried your sweets and fell in love with them, and because he believes in investing in the local community. The offer seemed too good to be true, but this time, the family made sure to understand every detail before accepting. Mr. Wilson was a respected man, known in the area for helping small entrepreneurs. The contract is simple, he explained when they met to talk. I lend the startup money, you set up the bakery. For 2 years, you pay me 30% of the profits. After that, the business is entirely yours. What if it doesn't work out? Jessica asked. If it doesn't, we'll talk. I'm not the kind of man who leaves a family homeless over money. This time, they asked a community lawyer to review the contract before signing. Everything was correct and fair. Do you agree? Mr. Wilson asked. The family exchanged glances. This time, the decision was unanimous and immediate. We're in, David said. 2 months later, the bakery Family Sweets opened in a small storefront on the neighborhood's main street. It was bigger than before, with a sidewalk display and a few tables for customers who wanted to eat there. Tyler had suggested the name. Because that's what we are, he said, a family that makes sweets together. The opening was a celebration for the whole community. Mrs. Jenkins made sure to invite all the local merchants. Mr. Wilson brought several friends, and even Mr. Thompson showed up, looking a little sheepish. Sorry about the trouble last time, he said to David. Business is business, but sometimes greed gets the better of us. It's all right, David replied. In the end, it worked out for us. The bakery was a success from day one. Grandma Ruth's recipes were truly special. Jessica turned out to be an excellent manager. David handled sales with dedication, and Tyler became the place's mascot, winning over customers with his natural charm. You know what? Grandma Ruth said one afternoon, watching the family work together. I think everything we went through was necessary. Necessary how? Jessica asked. To teach us the value of sticking together. If we hadn't separated, maybe we would have never valued our unity so much. David agreed. Sometimes you have to lose something to learn to appreciate what you have. Tyler, who was organizing the display, stopped to look at his family. I never want to lose you again. he said seriously. And you won't, Jessica assured him, hugging her son. Now we're a real family, forever. 6 months after opening the bakery, a surprise awaited them. A reporter from the local newspaper showed up wanting to do a story on small family businesses that had thrived in the area. I heard your story, she said. A family that reunited and built a business together. It's inspiring. The article was published on the front page of the business section and brought even more customers to the bakery. People from other parts of town started coming to try the famous family sweets. I think we're going to need a bigger space, David said, watching the line forming outside. Easy now, Grandma Ruth laughed. Let's take it slow. Growing too fast can be dangerous. Grandma's right, Tyler agreed. Better to grow slow and steady than fast and lose control. Everyone was impressed by the boy's maturity. At 11 years old, Tyler spoke like a seasoned little businessman. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One day, while Tyler was at school and David had gone out to buy ingredients, a woman walked into the bakery. "Excuse me," she said, addressing Jessica. "Are you the family that was interviewed in the newspaper?" "We are," Jessica replied. "Can I help you?" "My name is Allison. I'm a social worker. I'm here because of Tyler." Jessica's heart raced. "What about Tyler?" "I received an anonymous complaint saying a child was working here instead of being in school." "That's a lie," Jessica protested. "Tyler goes to school like any other kid. He only helps us after school and on weekends." "I need to verify. It's my job." Grandma Ruth stood up from the chair where she'd been resting. "Miss, that boy is our grandson. He doesn't work, he helps his family. There's a difference. I understand your concern, but I need to speak with the child and check his school records." When Tyler came home from school and found the social worker in the bakery, he looked visibly nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," Allison said gently. "I just want to talk with you." The conversation lasted over an hour. Allison asked about Tyler's routine, his schoolwork, and how he felt about helping at the bakery. "I like helping," Tyler said honestly. "They're my family and I don't really work. I just help when I don't have school." "And at school? How are your grades?" "Good. I can show you my report card." Tyler ran home and came back with his report card. His grades were indeed good, with notes from his teachers praising his behavior and dedication. "He's one of the top students in his class," Allison confirmed after calling the school. "And his teachers said he's never missed school because of work. So there's no problem?" Jessica asked, relieved. "No problem, but I'll stay in touch to make sure things stay that way." After Allison left, the family was shaken. "Who would make a complaint like that?" David asked. "Someone who doesn't like seeing us succeed," Grandma Ruth said wisely. "But why?" Tyler asked. "We haven't hurt anyone." "Unfortunately, Tyler, not everyone is happy when others improve their lives," David explained. The incident brought the family even closer, but also made them more cautious. They started documenting everything: Tyler's school hours, grades, and extracurricular activities. 3 months later, they found out who had made the complaint. One of the local merchants who had lost customers to the bakery told someone that that family was exploiting a child to make money. "The important thing is, we proved it isn't true," said Jessica. "Tyler is doing well, he's studying, he's happy. And we're together," Tyler added. "That's what matters." A year and a half after opening the bakery, Mr. Wilson showed up with an unexpected offer. "Do you want to pay off the loan early?" "How so?" asked David. "Your business has done better than I expected. You've already paid back almost 70% of what you owe. If you want, you can settle the rest now with a discount." The family gathered to decide. They had the money, but it would leave the bakery's funds tight. "I vote to pay it off," said Tyler. "That way the bakery will be completely ours sooner." "But it might be risky to leave little cash on hand," Jessica considered. "On the other hand, we'd be debt-free," said David. "Do what you think is best," said Ruth. "You understand business better than I do." In the end, they decided to pay. The Family Sweets Bakery was finally free of any financial obligations. "Now we're truly independent," David said during the celebration they held that night. "And a real family," Tyler added. raising his soda glass as if making a toast. 2 years after opening the bakery, Tyler was turning 13. The family decided to throw a special party, not just to celebrate his birthday, but to honor everything they'd achieved together. "You know the best gift I ever got in my life?" Tyler asked during the party. "What?" Everyone chimed in. "A real family." Jessica began to cry. "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what really matters," she told her son. "You don't have to apologize, Mom. What's important is that we found each other in the end." David watched the scene with a full heart. That boy he'd found picking crumbs off the ground had grown into a confident, smart, and generous young man. "Tyler," he said, "you know you're the heart of this family, right?" "What do you mean?" "You're the one who brought us back together. If you hadn't shown up at my popcorn cart that day, we never would have found each other again," Ruth finished. Tyler smiled, wiser than his 13 years should allow. "I think some things are just meant to be. We were destined to be a family." The week after Tyler's birthday, news arrived that took everyone by surprise. A local supermarket chain wanted to order sweets from the bakery to sell in their stores. "It's a big order," the purchasing manager explained. 3,000 units per week, different types of sweets. The family gathered to discuss the proposal. "It's an amazing opportunity," said Jessica. "But can we handle it?" "We'd have to hire more people," David noted. "And expand the kitchen space," Ruth added. "But it would also mean a lot more money," Tyler reminded them. After much discussion, they decided to accept the offer, but with one condition. They'd start with smaller orders and gradually increase. "I'd rather grow slowly and keep our quality than grow fast and lose control," Ruth said. The deal worked out, and 6 months later, the bakery had doubled in size. They hired 3 employees from their own shelter community and installed more modern equipment in the kitchen. Tyler, now in his first year of high school, still helped on weekends, but his priority was school. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" David asked him one day. "Administrator," answered Tyler without hesitation. "I want to learn how to run real businesses so I can help our bakery grow even more. And if you want to do something else, then I'll do something else, but I'll always take care of the family." Jessica, who had been listening to the conversation, was moved. "Tyler, you don't have to take care of us. It's not an obligation, Mom. It's love. We take care of the people we love." 3 years passed. Tyler was finishing high school and had been accepted into a business administration program with a scholarship. The bakery had become a local favorite, and the family had managed to buy their own home. "Do you remember how it all started?" Ruth asked one afternoon, watching the bakery's steady flow of customers. "How could I forget?" said David. "Tyler begging to eat crumbs off the floor." "And now look," Jessica said. "Tyler is going to college, we have our own house, a thriving business. And most importantly," Tyler added, "we have a united family." Ruth smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "You know something? Sometimes the bad things that happen in life are just the beginning of something really good." "What do you mean, Grandma?" "If I hadn't gotten sick, if Jessica hadn't left, if David hadn't drifted away, maybe you all would have never learned the value of family. Sometimes you have to lose something to truly appreciate it. But now we won't lose anything else," Tyler said firmly. "Now we know what's important." On the day of Tyler's high school graduation, the whole family was there. During his farewell speech, he mentioned them. "I want to dedicate this achievement to my family," he said into the microphone. "To my Uncle David, who taught me that generosity isn't measured by what you have, but by what you're willing to give. To my mom, Jessica, who taught me it's never too late to start over. And to my Grandma Ruth, who taught me that a family's love can overcome any hardship." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. After graduation, Tyler was accepted into business school with a full scholarship, but before starting college, he made a proposal to the family. "I want you all to take a vacation," he said. "A vacation?" David laughed. "Tyler, small businesses can't just stop." "Yes, they can. I talked to our staff. They can handle the bakery for a week. You all deserve a break." "And where would we go?" Jessica asked. "To the beach. Grandma Ruth always said she wanted to see the ocean." Ruth's eyes welled up. "Tyler, that's a very old dream. Then let's make it come true. All of us, together. The trip to the beach was the family's first vacation in, well, ever. Tyler had planned everything down to the smallest detail. The simple but cozy inn, the outings, the meals. On their first night as they walked along the shore, Ruth began to cry. "Why are you crying, Grandma?" Tyler asked, concerned. "From happiness," she answered. "At 75, I'm finally seeing the ocean, and my whole family is here with me." David took his mother's hand. "I'm sorry it took so long to bring you here. What matters is that I'm here now, with all of you." Tyler looked at the ocean, then at his family. "You know what? I think we're the richest family in the world." "Why?" Jessica asked. "Because we have everything that really matters. Health, love, togetherness. The rest is just details." On their last night, the family sat on the inn's porch to talk about the future. "Tyler is starting college," David said. "That means he'll have less time to help at the bakery." "And that's how it should be," Ruth said. "His future is in his education." "But I won't abandon you," Tyler promised. "I'll study, but on weekends and during vacations I'll still help out." "And when you graduate?" Jessica asked. Tyler smiled. "When I graduate, I'll modernize the bakery. We'll have online deliveries, sales to other states, maybe even franchises." "Franchises?" Ruth widened her eyes. "What kind of business is that?" "It's when other people open bakeries just like ours in other cities, Grandma, using our recipes and our name." "But the recipes are family secrets," Ruth protested. "Exactly, and they'll stay that way. We'll just teach others how to make them too, and they'll pay to use our recipes." David shook his head, impressed. "This boy is going places." "This boy is taking the whole family with him," Tyler corrected. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this heartwarming story of family reunion. If you have a family, give them a hug today, because family is the most precious treasure we can have. Leave a comment sharing if you've ever been through a similar situation, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories. Thank you so much for being here with us.